Hello everyone and welcome back to Custom Cycle Studios. You're watching Viking Metal Industries. And today we have yet another cam job. Up on the rack today we got a 2023 Lowrider S with a 117 M8 engine. We're going to be putting in a redshift 468 cam. So follow along. As usual, I've run ahead, taken off the exhaust and intake. So let's roll that intro and let's go get into the parts we're throwing on this thing. So customer showed up yesterday, looking to put a cam in his bike. Got a really cool zippers kit, so let's go into that. Start off with the Glory here. Nice redshift 468 cam. Comes with the bearing in the box. Guy wants to upgrade to some black pushrod tubes and some black lifter blocks, S&S adjustable pushrods, zippers, lifters, S&S lifter guides, gasket kit, and this really cool zippers gear set upgrade. Apparently this is a closer tolerance fit than the factory gear, giving you more accurate timing, and they give you a nice upgraded tensioner right there. And last but not least, for tuning, this customer got himself my favorite of the Dynajet tuners, the old PV OG Power Vision Black, whatever you want to call it. This is the good one, does the auto tuning right on this screen here. I know that Dynajet says the PV3 and PV4 could do more, but they can't. I refuse. I love these tuners. You gotta know what you're doing to use one. And they're very expensive, but they're one of the best tuning modules out there for your bike. So yeah, I have pulled the exhaust. This guy's got a really cool Suzuki Speed unit right here in that almost looks like titanium finish. It's got an Arlen Ness intake. It's all blown apart right there. So yeah, we've already busted our way down into the cam chest here. So I'm going to go ahead and pop the push rod covers, cut the push rods, and we're going to pull this thing apart. Okay, so pulled our push rods. We've also pulled the lifter blocks. Now, the reason why we're cutting the push rods here is because when you get a set of S&S quickie push rods, like I showed you earlier, and we'll go into how to adjust that when we get there, you don't actually have to pull your rocker boxes. You don't have to pull the rocker covers off, don't have to deal with any of that. So you just cut your old push rods and then you just adjust the new ones in. Now, there are a couple of differences between a twin cam chest and a Milwaukee 8 cam chest. First and foremost, what I want to talk about is these plastic lifter guides here. They're not, terrible, but nobody likes this plastic stuff in the engine. I have heard some horror stories of people doing performance work and not replacing these, and them breaking and spreading plastic through the motor, kind of like your old tensioner shoes in the 99 up twin cams. But luckily, S&S makes this stuff right here that replaces those plastic bits with these nice billet aluminum lifter guides. So from here, we've lined up our dots on our gears. So we are theoretically at TDC. So we're gonna go ahead and pull the tensioner, pop these gears off, and go into the cam chest. Now, something that I forgot to address last cam install on my dyno that I did was actually how to do the bearing. So once we get there here in a minute, I'll show you all how to do that, what tool you need for it. But for now, let's pop this apart. Down to the plate. Now, we're not replacing the oil pump, so this time around we're gonna leave the pump bolted to the plate the whole time. Of course, we will check, loosen, and retorque when we go back together with it, but for the sake of assembly, disassembly, we'll just leave it together. Jump in there, pop it out. Nice and easy. It's important to make sure you replace all of the O-rings in these things when you do this job. Hang it on. All right, so we pulled our cam chest out, got our lifters and everything out. Next thing we're gonna do, as always, we're gonna check our crankshaft run out. So, you know, make sure you get your run out tool. These things don't have to be the most expensive one you can find. I found this one on like Amazon. You know, you don't have to buy the super expensive run out tool, but you do need to measure your run out on any of these Harleys you do made after 2002. We're just gonna give it a roll ski. And we're moving less than a thou. Which is doing pretty good. Show you all this. Less than 1,000th of overall movement. We love it. Now we know that's good, we'll move on to extracting our bearing and installing a new one. The next thing you're gonna need is one of these camshaft installation and extraction plates. You can find these. This one's for Milwaukee 8. It's just got 2 holes. You can get them for twin cams as well. You can find them for pretty cheap on Amazon, complete kits. They won't last forever because the steel's can't take that much of an abuse, but it will get you through at least one of these jobs if you're trying to do it yourself. But they're very necessary to have if you're doing this kind of work day in, day out. Works real simple. This collet, it's got a ramrod that pushes through. You just slap that into the bearing, slide the plate over it, screw it to the case, and go. I'll show you how we do that. Now, set this up like so. Fix that. Slide our rod in. Get our washer. Boom. Okay. Grab yourself a couple of wrenches. And just walk it out. Like that. Boom. Pop your plate back off. Your bearing is out. Old bearing extracted. For our next trick, install a pusher like this. You thread your collet on the end. A little bit of oil for your bearing. Go ahead and reset our tool. Now that you have your tool reset, you just gently wind it down into the case. On this plate, I can just kind of look at the top hole, see where I'm going. we're all set, we'll go ahead and grab our wrench, start winding it in. Want to be nice and slow and methodical about it. Don't want to bind nothing. And we just kind of run it in until it stops. Don't over tighten that, just go till you feel it stop. Now, it is very important that you remember to insert the bearing with the letters out. The little letters stamped around the rim of the bearing, you gotta have those stamped out. I don't know how it's directional, but it is directional. I'm also a YouTube head. I've watched the videos of guys putting them in backwards and ruining their new camshafts and stuff, so, you know, mind your P's and Q's. So yeah, with that, I'm gonna go ahead and get our new cam set up on the plate. We'll get to reinstalling that. All right, so now we have our cam ready to go back in the bike, all nicely assembly lubed. So we just kind of gotta line everything up, shove everything back in the hole. Remember to replace your O-rings with your new gasket kit. And on the earlier model M8s that don't have this rear donut seal on the back of their oil pump, I would recommend going out and getting one and installing it. It does help with some of the crankcase blow-by and sumping issues that these engines had early on. Kind of keeps everything nice and sealed. Now I'm just gonna and you take your bottom finger here, you want to put it on the back end of the pump inlet, and that's where you push from to seat it in the O-ring for in the bottom of the case. Feel a nice positive pop right when it goes back into place. All right, so now that we have the plate in the case, next step's gonna be torquing it down. Now, as I stated earlier, we did leave the oil pump connected to the plate when we pulled it, but for the sake of torquing, I backed off the screws about a half turn to kind of get the torque off of them so I can recenter the oil pump and the plate to the pinion shaft. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to rotate the bike. We're going to hear it puffing and chuffing. And then we are going to set our torque wrench to 120 inch-pounds. And we're going to make our way around the pump. As you do, in a crisscross pattern. Rotate again. Make our way around the bolts. Make sure you get a factory service manual when you do this so you can look up your torque specs. Now, just like last time, we're gonna go around and double check the torque on all those bolts. All right. Now, once again, we'll rotate our pump, our pinion, and we will start gently pulling the pump down. And we will do our final torque sequence of the pump. Rotations for every pull. And give yourself check torque. Same as a twin cam. Give your bike one last couple of rotations on the wheel, make sure everything's free. You're good to go to put your gears in. So from here, we talked about camshaft spacing last time. We want to take our factory spacers, shove it in there. Just turn our gear that way. And now, I'm gonna stop the camera and depackage all these, but now we're going to check spacing and fitment for our new cam gears. All right, now, gears, you can see I bolted them in there. They were covered in cosmoline, which is a pretty common industrial coating for motors. I tend to believe that it's good to wash cosmoline off and replace it with regular oil before you put it in an engine, because it does tend to collect dirt and grit and stuff over time. Well, it does protect the metal part. So if you get gears covered in like weird goop, wash them off, then install them. So anyway, we've got them temporarily set up. Now these zippers gears are a little different than the factory ones. You can see these are the factory gears. The big difference is in the pinion gear down here. This gear is set to a much tighter tolerance on how it fits onto the pinion shaft, so that there's not as much wobble, and it gives you a more accurate crank to cam timing on the chain. But now that these are bolted on, we'll go ahead and grab our flat edge and do a quick check measurement, make sure that everything lines up, and then we can throw on the chain and start going back together with it. The holy straight edge. Alignment like butter. Good. Sweet. Okay, so now we checked our chain alignment. I want to grab a nice simple little puller tool like this guy. Slide it behind this gear here. And sometimes a good idea, you just use the old bolt. Pull the pinion gear back off. Like I said earlier, this is a press fit kind of situation. And we will set ourselves up in our chain, like so. All right, make sure your dots line up like that. Rotate our cam back where it's supposed to be. Place a pinion gear. Grab our bolts. Good. Drop a red Loctite on. I only need one drum. Alright, then we put our chain shoe tool in here and get ready to torque these up. The cam sprocket gets torqued to 30 foot-pounds. And the pinion sprocket gets torqued to 25 foot-pounds. Same spec as on a twin cam. Ain't that surprising, really. Make sure those are tight and happy. Pull your thingy, and then we set up our new zippers tensioner block. Want to take a little bit of your assembly goop, put a drop on there. Ooh. I really hope the camera picked up that noise for all of you. That was a beautiful, beautiful noise this thing just made. Before you put it in, take your oil can and just give it a couple of, give it a squirt. Just a little squirt, give it a little bit of oil. And push it back out. And I've got to put blue Loctite on screws. As always, push in and not rotate. Get your screws set. Find what size socket you need. Be a disorganized slob like me. Put one of these puppies down. And then once again, torque to 120 inch-pounds. Just like that. We will grab our new lifters. Whoa, much stuff. Ooh. Always read your instructions, kids. So at this point, it's time to put our lifters in. We've got them pumped up. Shove them in their holes. Make sure your oil ports are facing towards the fill ports in the block, as always. And now, it's time to put on our nice new minty S&S lifter guides. Of course. There we go. All right, those lifter guides are directional. Once you got them sat down, grab your fresh screws. Screw them on down in there. Ratchet these puppies down. Measure spin. So, we verified that our lifters are doing their lifteriest. Motor's making funny noises. Okay, so once you've set these in here, you do need to go around and set the exact position of tappet cuffs so that the lifters don't bind on the way down. They should come up and then just naturally drop back down through the cuffs. Otherwise, you'll get some middle wear in the engine. So now that we have these installed, I'm going to go ahead and put in our new lifter blocks and set up our push rod tubes. And then I'll show you how to do the adjustable push rods. All right, so as you can see, I've already got one of my push rods in there. I'm going to just roll through this real quick. It's not a super hard process. This is an S&S quickie push rod. Collapses all the way down, makes it so that you can do this job without pulling the rocker boxes like you've seen me do here. So basically you're just gonna load your push rod up and shove it on up in the hole there, and then you just thread the push rod out until it makes contact with the top of the lifter and the rocker. We call that like neutral position or zero lash. Basically it's where the push rod is fully seated. Now, give me a second to do that. Man, somebody is hauling up Route 9 right now. So, once your push rods are adjusted, it's very important that you look up manufacturer instructions for your lifters and the manufacturer instructions for your push rods. So that way you know what the adjustment spec is. Now these are some Zippers lifters, and they offer two different ways to bleed these down basically. So I'm going to go with the more common style that they call top down. And what they say if you're using S&S quickie push rods is that you are going to basically stage this. If your lifters are very tight, or you've pre-used them and you're putting these push rods in, doing this stage is incredibly important. But on a set of fresh lifters, even if you've lightly pumped them full of oil, the lifters will bleed down pretty quickly. So, you know, with this setup, we're looking at 15 flats of adjustment, or 16 flats of adjustment, pardon my words, which, if you think about your hex nuts, equates out to just over 2.5 turns of the nut. That brings down the lifter to about a little over half of its travel, allowing it to stay nice and firm once it's pumped full of oil. So tools you're gonna need: 2 7/16 wrenches and a 1/4 inch wrench. I also highly recommend you take a piece of wire or something and tie up the push rod and say no faulty down. So we take what I like to do is just kind of preload it with my fingies. Get our 1/4 inch wrench right there, and then take a paint marker and mark our flat. That does tell me how quickly I'm going around. And then from there, the rest of the adjustment's pretty simple. You just hold your 1/4 inch here and start spinning. That's one. Full turn. Two full turns. And then we count the flats. One flat, two flat, three flat, four flat. And you want to run your lock nut up. Now I do recommend when you're doing this that you hold your rod wrenches, so to speak, together. Your 1/4 inch on the bottom, your other wrench up top, and then you come down to the lock nut and you tighten it down. I want to make sure that one's pretty tight because you do not want one of these coming loose. First set I ever put on one of these on one of my bikes years ago. I didn't quite man strength that thing tight. And I was driving home from work like a couple days later, my push rod started rat-a-tat-a-tatting. It was not a good day. After you've done this, you want to give it a couple of minutes and make sure you can spin it by hand. These are fresh, brand new lifters, just lightly pumped with oil. So you can see here, they spin by hand already. Done the intake, it's also spinning by hand nice and easy. So then, now that we verify these can spin easily by hand, go to our rear wheel and just give it a couple of rotations. Nice and slow, nice and easy. We don't want to feel any big binds. And then we'll shove our fingers in our front lifter block. Feel for these lifters to come all the way to the bottom of their travel. Once these front ones are all the way to the bottom of your travel, you do this procedure again. Take your time, be easy with it. Yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and put these last two push rods in, and we'll check back for the final check over and pack this thing up. Now that we've completed our push rod adjustment, camshaft is in, gears are on, everything's nicely torqued. Last thing we do, again, before we cap up the motor, I'm just gonna come to the rear wheel, give it a nice, easy spin through. You're gonna feel some compression. You're gonna feel the springs. What you don't wanna feel is any hard stops. And with that, we know our top end's probably gonna work. So now I'm gonna cap this thing up, get the exhaust and the intake back on it. We'll work towards our first fire up. All right, so cam is in, we have our pipes back on, we have our intake on. Last step before you fire your bike up, just grab your cleaning solution, a rag, and just give the pipe a quick wipe down and get all your greasy mitt prints off of it. Now I've changed the oil. Also a very important thing to do whenever you do this stuff. Give your bike an oil filter change. And I have loaded up the tune that was provided to our customer by Fuel Moto into his Power Vision. So, as of right now, we're gonna fire this puppy up and see how it sounds. Things sounds good. I've already put my wideband O2 sensors in the pipe, so when I load it onto my dyno, I can just plug it in and do that. So yeah, I'm just gonna finish up one last couple of things to button this up, and next time we see it here in a second, it'll be up on the dyno. We'll see how much power it makes. It's the next day, and we're gonna tune this thing up, see how much power it makes with this 468 cam. I've not put one of these in a 117 yet, so I'm interested to see how it goes. So we've run our tuning sessions. I think the bike's doing pretty good. So at this point now we're going to fire it back up and just kind of do a couple of checkovers with the dyno, and then we're going to see what kind of power this thing's putting out once and for all. See what a 468 cam does in a 117. Alrighty, so we have our power numbers. Pretty appreciable boost in horsepower and Turks. Alright, I'll save you the doldrum of all of the runs I did. But you'll see here on my photograph, we're making 110 horsepower, 133 foot-pounds of torque. After my tune, prior to the tune, we're making like 102 and 124 off of the Fuel Moto can tune. You know, I looked up what people are saying these bikes are making in stock form when you dyno tune them at the rear wheel. And a lot of guys are getting about 102 horsepower and about 116 to 120 foot-pounds of torque out of these bikes in bone stock form. Get Lowered Cycles had a really good article about it that I read on 2024 Lowrider S, the 117 that they just picked up. Shout out to them. So, you know, I'd say that, you know, this is a nice, pretty appreciable horsepower gain, all things considered, for this bike. You know, the 468 cam could definitely be bigger, you know what I mean? Like, he could have gone for a larger cam in this bike and it would have taken it and made even more power, but I think the customer just wanted just a little bit of extra spice. That's why he picked this cam. So I'm gonna let this thing cool down. I gotta swap the factory O2 sensors back in it, and we'll take it for a test ride and we'll see how it feels. Ooh, she's spicy. Real perky and spicy today. These bikes are a little jumpy. Maybe it's just all that torques. But it's picking up nice. Looks like we got our gap coming up. Oh, brother, you are brave. Oh, this thing's a rocket! Oh, this thing pulls like a truck, bro.
Clutch feels a little misadjusted, but I gotta look at that when I get back to the shop. I gotta put a tire on this thing. But otherwise, God, I love how these bikes feel. And this new motor is just heavenly with power, man. Absolutely fucking balls to the wall. I would love to not be in all this traffic though, so we're gonna try and get out of that here in a minute. This is not as miserable as I thought it'd be. Yeah, sometimes I cam these M8s. That is pretty mild cam. I think 468's pretty small to be putting in a 117. And the horsepower numbers kind of show that. But a lot of these cams just make the bikes very unfriendly at low speed. I'm sure there's some tuning consideration there, I'll admit. But this doesn't feel too bad. You know, 468 cam, even in the 117, still gives it 130 something, 33 foot-pounds of torque is what we measured. This is the snow pile. And again, this bike is just awesome, man. Make gobs of power. Pulls like a truck forever, like freight train pulling forever, man. I'm really happy with how it's turned out. I want one of these so bad. Just any of these new Gen 2 M8s, they're really truly impressive. And heck, I think they've actually redesigned the head on the 117s for the or on the 117 high outputs for these bikes, and you know, the S and the ST. And I think actually, yeah, they like reported the head or something, I heard. So, you know, this is an amazing package. Handles like no other generation of Harley ever. And goddamn, you know, you just put a cam on one of these bikes, it just wakes it up so hard. Fuck. Check that out, dude. Third gear roll on like nothing. Cruising all day long. This Memphis Shades fairing cuts the wind nicely. The one I've got on my soft tail is like up to here, so I really get like no wind buffeting at all with it. It's awesome. But I do love these fairings. That's just fucking awesome. Look at that passing power. Alright, enough unsafe activities. Just gotta go the speed limit, don't want to get in trouble. This ain't my bike. But I can safely say, that wide open throttle pull, baby! Oh! So spicy. Guy's gonna have to get used to his bike all over again. let's head on back to the shop. Close out this video, eh?
Well, now that we're back in the shop, I think it's safe to say that this 2023 Lowrider S is a certified ripper. The redshift 468 cam, while a conservative cam for this displacement of engine, is still making a really good power result at 133 foot-pounds of torque. That ain't nothing to shake a stick at with a Harley. So I think the owner is really gonna love this bike. Special thanks to Jason for agreeing to let me film his beautiful motorcycle here. And a reminder to everybody, we're still doing our spring oil change special, 10% off all of our basic oil change services from now until the end of March. So if you're looking to get your bike worked on, hit us up at customcyclestudio.net or on Facebook or Instagram or any of our other socials. Come make an appointment, and yeah. So I've been Will, this has been Viking Metal Industries. Y'all have a wonderful day.